It is the voice of college football, plus or minus 3. Who will make the list in 2024? Welcome to the voice of college football, breaking down the game we all love each and every day with you best discussion, debate, and analysis. All right, this is the plus or minus 3, courtesy the voice of college football. What is this? What is this, Mark? A new stat, new trend? Yes. This is catching fire across the country. It is the new rage in college football. It's the voice of college football, plus or minus 3. We recognized several years ago that the preseason publications, Athlon's, Street and Smith's, etc., they were being way too conservative with their predictions. They were basically adding a win or a loss, and that was pretty much the next year's prediction for the most part, except for the very obvious Colorado situation of 2022 going into 2023. Other than that, being way too conservative. And I thought, these predictions seem rather conservative. I'd like to know, how much is there a drastic change between one college football season and the next? Because the sport does seem kind of stale in regards to these are always the elite and on down the line. Well, you know what? The elites stay the same, basically. But everybody else, from about Team 10 through the rest of the country, there's a lot of volatility. And I routinely, and if you watch us on a regular basis here at the Voice of College Football and take part in the call-in shows, you know that I ask you all the time, how many teams do you think have a win total from one season to the next that goes up by at least 3 or down by at least 3? And there are currently 69 teams in the Power 5 plus Notre Dame. And you, like I would have done years ago, guess 6, 8, 10, 12 teams that have that kind of disparity. So think 6-6 team one year elevating to 9-3 or dropping to 3-9 at least. Think last season we had Colorado. The season before Coach Prime, they were 1-11. He elevates them to 4-8. That's a 3-game difference. Think Florida State. That was 9-3 the year before. Nice season, but 12-0 the next season. This is a regular season experiment. This is a regular season measurement. Again, we'll take you through what happened last season where, get this, out of 69, 25 of the 69, and you're seeing them right there, had at least a 3-game difference in win total from 2022 on to 2023. Who are those teams going to be in 2024 that either jump in wins or plummet in wins? And sometimes you look like a fool trying to make that prediction because if you look at any one of the power conferences, it's going to be about a third of the conference because as long as I've been tracking this, it's been about 18 to 22 typically is the number. 18 to 22 out of what used to be the 65 in the Power 5 now is the 69 in the Power 4. There's going to be a big difference with a number of these teams. Spot the teams. Who are they going to be? Well, let's run down to the candidates. And then, of course, leave your comments down below of who you think I missed. Who is going to take the big surge or the big plummet here in 2024? Hey, let's go back to Florida State. Do they take a bit of a tumble from 12-0 and ACC championship? So to meet our criteria, the Seminoles would have to drop to at least 9-3. Well, Jordan Travis leaves. And a ton of NFL talent, of course, is gone from last year's team. DJ Uiagalelei is the new quarterback, and he's not as good as Jordan Travis. They had a huge talent loss. Okay, when we look at the schedule, without Jordan Travis and Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman and Jared Verse and company, who could they possibly lose to? What 3 games could Florida State trip up on? That would be Clemson. That is a home game, of course. They've got North Carolina. They've got Miami. That game on the road this year. They've got Notre Dame. So if they lose 3 out of those 4 games, they are going to hit our mark of 9-3. Some outside possibilities. I don't see a whole lot of options there. It's pretty much those 3 or 4 games in the back half of the season that Florida State could make the list. Next candidate we have here is Louisville. 10-2 in the regular season. Of course, they lost the ACC championship game and the bowl game to USC, but we're only looking at regular season difference here. This team lost 18 players through the transfer portal. They did pick up transfer quarterback Tyler Shook to take over for Jack Plummer. Panay Boone is their new running back from Toledo, 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns. They picked up Ja'Cory Brooks, fine wide receiver from Alabama, and Tyler Barron, who had 6 sacks at Tennessee. So let's look at the schedule. What's this look like? Well, they've got a date at Notre Dame, and of course, Louisville won that game against the Irish, so Marcus Freeman's team's going to be looking for some revenge. Also, Miami. That game was close at Hard Rock this time. It's at Louisville. They've got Clemson on the road. They've got to deal with those. So there's 3 losses right there if you think Louisville's not able to get by any one of those 3 teams. And then a number of trip-up possibilities. Of course, Kentucky usually wins that matchup against Louisville. Pitt should be much better than they've been in the past. If you can find 5 losses, we're looking for Louisville. They can't go up on this scale because they only lost 2 games last year. So we're looking for Louisville to make this list. They've got to drop to 7-5. Virginia Tech was on the list this past season because they went from 3 wins to 6-6, albeit they cheated a bit because they did not play the final game against Virginia the year before, and they were 3-8. But still, from 3 to 6 wins, does Brent Pry keep this surge going all the way up to 9-3? Kyron Drones is back at quarterback, 22 total touchdowns and 3 interceptions. This team, Virginia Tech, has the number 1 team in the nation in regards to returning production at 86%. Let's look at the schedule here. Where are the losses? They should not come in the first month of the season. Virginia Tech looking for a little payback against Rutgers. They lost by 3 scores to the Scarlet Knights last year on the road, but they've got Rutgers at Lane Stadium. They go to Miami. You've got Stanford, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Syracuse. Okay, Clemson. That could be a loss, but my goodness, can they go 9-3? Let's say they lose to Miami on the road. They lose to Clemson, and they trip up somewhere else. They could possibly, with an easy non-conference schedule of Vandy, Marshall, Old Dominion, and Rutgers, Virginia Tech, a candidate to make our list, they got to go 9-3. The team that's always supposed to be better than it typically turns out to be is Miami. We've been waiting for Miami to break out for 15 years. And they keep going 7-5. Actually, Miami is basically 7-5 for the last 20 years. They've got a 57% winning percentage. That's 7-5. Well, they went 7-5 last year. But Cam Ward, a quarterback, back-to-back top 10 classes. The last one in the top 5 in the nation. Of course, they're just freshmen. They're only going to make so much of an impact. But still, Cam Ward at quarterback, Xavier Restrepo back at wide receiver. A date at Florida, as Miami would have to go 10-2 to make our plus or minus 3. Easy wins after that for the next 3 weeks. Virginia Tech at home, going all the way across country to take on Cal. And then you see the rest of the matchup. Of course, Florida State took care of Miami last year in a pretty hard-fought game at Doak Campbell Stadium, this time at Hard Rock. But look at that stretch drive of Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. They should win all those games. Miami gets to 10-2, possibly. Got to win at Florida, of course. Let's say they trip up against Florida State, and then they lose the game against Louisville on the road. If they can hold serve otherwise, Miami 10-2 seems like a big stretch. But again, there will be those teams, 20 teams or more, that go plus or minus 3. The next candidate out of the ACC is Pitt. Not just a horrible season for Pat Narduzzi and company, but just an odd season because Pat Narduzzi posted the best record in the Coastal Division. For all those seasons, they won the ACC championship in 2021. And they went 9-4 in 2022. They've been winning 8 or 9 games, and then they just bottom out at 3-9. So Pitt's only got to go 6-6. Well, they've got Kent State. They lost against Cincinnati last year. They got to go on the road this time. They got West Virginia. They lost that game last season, but they beat the Mountaineers 2 years ago. Let's say they only win 1 of those non-conference games, but they've got Youngstown State, so 2-2 non-conference. Okay, 4 wins in the conference. They beat Cal, they beat Syracuse, they beat SMU in one other game, Virginia, Boston College. You can easily see Pitt hitting our list of plus or minus 3, getting to 6-6. Here's a candidate right here that I don't believe a whole lot of people would have. Yes, Virginia's a pretty lousy football team, and they have not been good since Bronco Mendenhall left. But I do like the young quarterback, Anthony Calandria. He was just a freshman last year, threw for 2,000 yards. Also, they played a lot of close games against good teams. Teams like Louisville almost won that game on the road. Took Miami to overtime. Beat North Carolina. So Virginia 3-9. They've got to get to 6-6. Well, they've got Richmond. They've got Coastal Carolina as non-conference games. They got blasted by Maryland last year by 4 touchdowns. Probably got to win that game to get to 6-6 into a bowl game, because the middle stretch of that season, not easy. Louisville, Clemson, North Carolina, Pitt, Notre Dame. So if you look at that collection of games, got to go 4-4 most likely in the ACC to get this done. I still think Virginia's got an outside shot to do what Virginia Tech did last year. Go from 3 wins to 6 and make our plus or minus 3 list. Dave Clawson's one of the best coaches in the country. But he said after a bad 2023, I'm a 4-8 coach. This is a 4-8 team. We are who our record says we are. That's what we are. But Dave Clawson has been so much better than that. And Wake has basically been 7-5, 8-4. Aside from the Sam Hartman team that went to the ACC championship game in 2021, they have consistently been a 7 or 8 win team. Well, they dropped off to 4-8 last year. Do they bounce back to get to 7-5? Non-conference, North Carolina, A&T, Louisiana, UConn. They should go 3-1. They do play Ole Miss, so that's not easy. But 3 wins out of conference should be the target there. Then in conference, they got to win 4 out of 8. Where are these wins? Got to beat Virginia to get to 7 wins. Then probably Stanford and Cal, and win another game, most likely against Duke at home. That gets them to 4-4 in the ACC. They hit their target at 7-5. Possible plus or minus 3 right here in Dave Clawson and Wake Forest. Your candidates, we want to hear from you. Leave your comments down below. And, of course, lock it in right here at the Voice of College Football. Give us a like. Of course, sub it up. And we'll see you next time right here at the Voice of College Football.